John Fain.
One of the most hotly contested debates in the whole world at the moment is the debate about climate change and climate science. You may have over the weekend seen in the newspapers that yet another plank in the United Nations panel, the expert panel on climate change, has fallen over as more doubt is cast on some of the basic research on climate change. Well, is there now sufficient doubt to reopen what is for many people a closed debate? Or have you made your mind up anyway? Who do you believe? Are people who say that climate change isn't happening the zealots, or is it the zealots who say that it is? And where's the balance in all of this? Well, often we've been challenged to conduct debates with climate deniers, and on several occasions we have. And we've conducted each of them, I hope, in an open and fair manner. The ABC from time to time being accused, of course, of bias on this, which sticks, I might say, in my throat somewhat, but that's another story for another day. But touring Australia at the moment on a sponsored tour is Lord Monckton, the third Viscount Monckton of Brenchley, formerly an advisor to Margaret Thatcher, not a climate scientist, a mathematician, but a prominent and articulate sceptic. We've invited him to come to the studio and debate Rupert Posner from the Climate Group. To you both, good morning.
Good morning.
And thanks very much for coming in. Lord Monckton, first of all, why would it be that the governments of the main industrialised worlds, China, Japan, India, all of the European governments, Australia, the US, wherever you go, these governments and all of their advisors have investigated all of these issues? They can't surely all be wrong.
Well, first of all, they don't all take the line you say they do, nor do their advisors, which is why, as we speak, this is the day on which every one of those governments is supposed to have let the UN's climate panel know exactly what reductions they're going to make in emissions over the next 10 years, and so far the vast majority of them have failed even to comply with that obligation that
that's
they
for
recently
reasons to do
signed,
with internal politics
that they
and
recently
domestic
signed
issues
under the Copenhagen Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is that there is now growing doubt about whether one can trust the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Its chairman is being investigated for criminal offences in the United Kingdom at the moment.
Which offences?
Offences of filing false accounts in 3 successive years in a charity of which he's a trustee.
Which charity?
The charity is called Terry Europe Limited.
How much is the amounts of money involved?
Amounts of money involved are that in each of the 3 years concerned, he and his fellow trustees declared income of less than £10,000. However,
for the charity or for themselves?
For the charity.
Yeah.
However, in the year 2007 alone, there is on a government website a government grant to that charity amounting to more than £30,000 just for 1 year. And further investigation has revealed that, in fact, they had income in the hundreds of thousands, possibly in the millions, and that is now being investigated. The charity has accepted that it had indeed filed incorrect accounts.
Okay, so he's on a whole lot of boards, and on one of them something's gone perhaps irregular on the accounts. What's that got to do with the fundamentals of the science?
It is criminal false accounting at UK law. Now, if you are the chairman of an intergovernmental panel, you ought not also to be a trustee of a charity that has a conflict of interest, gives you a conflict of interest. He also is a director of the main charity, Terry, in India, and that too has just tendered for a £4 billion contract to clean up the oil fields in Kuwait. Who is it tendering to? The United Nations, whose climate panel he's the chairman of.
But this doesn't change
whether you like it or not, people
it?
are now beginning to ask questions about whether those who have put the so-called science together have put it together in a certain order because they want to make some money out of it.
Are you suggesting then that this is a business conspiracy, a global business conspiracy encompassing China, India, Europe, America, all the developed world?
I have not used the word conspiracy.
No, but
and if you are saying, as you appear to be, that science is done by consensus, then I have to tell you that it never has been and it never will be. No. Science is done by diligent research. Diligent research has established many times over in the peer-reviewed literature that the UN has exaggerated the warming effect of CO2 7-fold. That part of the UN's documents is now going to have to be very substantially revised.
Rupert Posner from the Climate Group, good morning, and thank you for joining us as well. First of all, do you think there's a substantial dent in the credibility then of the science that we've been relying on globally?
No, John, I don't think there is. And I find some of the comments that Christopher's made is kind of a little bit remarkable. I can understand that people are sceptical or they don't know a lot about the science, it's very difficult to get your head around this. You can't see what's going on.
Yes,
so,
it's easy to do a snow job on the public. Is that what's happening?
No, I don't believe so. And,
Well, again and again, the planks that they're relying on have questions cast on them.
Well, I don't believe so. I mean, if you look at a document that was thousands of pages long, and you've got to remember that the IPCC is not this separate body that does things on its own. It works with the scientists of the world and the governments of the world.
And some of what they've relied on, for instance, glacial melts and the like, is just turning out to have been wildly exaggerated.
No, there was one element in there where they talked about what might happen in the future to glaciers in India. And that was proven not to be backed up with the sort of scientific rigour that the rest of the document has.
But they knew they'd got it wrong, and the scientist who was the lead scientist on that chapter admitted that he knew it was wrong, but he put it in to influence the governments that have been
Christopher,
influenced.
If you would like to let me have something to say, I'm more than happy to let you talk.
Carry on. I thought I'd just answer the point. Do carry on.
No, that's okay. I don't need to be here if you would like to do all the talking yourself.
If you wish to leave, you can, but I advise you to stay and carry on.
In Australia, we perhaps have a few more matters, and when we're having a debate, we allow both people
Let's
to have
talk
something
about
to
the
say.
issues here, and I'll do the regulation
Sure,
of the debate.
absolutely.
If I think it's getting out of hand,
okay,
I'll jump in.
That's
Keep
fine.
answering the
and I don't want to
questions.
make this personal. And clearly Christopher thinks that it's personal. He thinks, for example, that the Australian government, the Prime Minister of Australia, President Obama, the President of China are influenced in what they're doing on climate change because of an NGO in India. Now,
by scientists who admit they have
It would be
lied.
good if you didn't interrupt as much.
Okay.
It certainly would help
Yep,
the flow. I will
absolutely.
get back to you,
I'll be
don't
quiet.
worry.
Okay, so let's just make a couple of points. First of all, I don't believe it's a global conspiracy. I don't believe that it's world governments trying to take over the world and influence. It's not run by vegetarians who are trying to make sure that we don't eat meat. So let's
bedwetters and liars, as Lord Monckton described.
So I don't believe that's true. I also believe it's completely understandable that people want to question the science, but we need to look at where the scientists who have studied climate science, and that's where I take my advice from. I don't take my advice from people who haven't studied the climate science.
Sure.
And I also look at long-term trends. If we look at the share market, for example, and we look at what happened in the last couple of hours, that doesn't necessarily reflect what happened in the day or in the week. And in the same way, when we look at the climate science, we can't just look at what happened in the last couple of years. We've got to look at the long-term trends. And when we do that, it is very clear what's happening.
18 minutes to 9 on 774 ABC Melbourne. John Fain with you through till 12 o'clock. But at the moment, you can join in with Rupert Posner from the Climate Group and Lord Monckton, Climate Skeptic, 1300 222 774. The issue, Lord Monckton, is not just about the science, it's also about, as Rupert Murdoch famously said, giving the planet the benefit of the doubt. What's wrong with that approach? If we're not sure, if there's a disagreement between the scientists, well, it can't hurt to make the planet a better place.
All right, let's first of all look at an ETS. Does that have anything whatsoever to offer in terms of saving the planet? Even Kevin Rudd doesn't dare say that it does. Because if you set the price of the right to emit a tonne of carbon at a low enough level that it doesn't